who are having their care compromised, and even consultants are saying premature deaths are occurring because of what is happening.
The Finance Minister expects Ireland to face a short and shallow downturn this year, but says it's unlikely we'll enter recession. It comes as the government recorded a €5 billion surplus for 2022, largely thanks to increased tax revenues post-pandemic. €22.6 billion was gathered through corporation tax, which became the state's second largest revenue contributor for the first time. Finance Minister Michael McGrath says, however, he will not rely on foreign investment to prop up the economy.
We cannot rely on a level of corporation tax receipts to a value of €10.5 billion in 2022. They may recur, we hope they do recur, but we're not guaranteed that. And that makes it all the more important that we continue to run budget surpluses, that the process Minister Donoghue started in putting €2 billion into a national reserve is continued.
And that's your news. More at 10.
News Talk weather.
Thanks to Ryanair. No weekend plans? We'll fix that with flights to Barcelona, Lisbon or Madrid.
Mostly dry early tonight with lowest temperatures of 4 to 8 degrees. Later, patchy outbreaks of rain and drizzle will spread northeastwards across the country. Moderate south to southwest breezes will increase fresh and gusty towards morning. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
Your chance to win big. News Talk's cash machine.
Now, the cash machine's been reloaded. The new number for you this evening, €17,882.63. Text play to 57557. Get your entry in by 3 o'clock tomorrow. And then across the goal line at our stations. Barry Dunn will make the call. If your phone rings, answer within 5 rings. The exact amount in your own cents, and the cash is yours. So again, the amount for tomorrow is €17,882.63. Over 18's only text cost €2.50, and you're playing across the goal line network of stations. Terms and conditions on newstalk.com.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky, get more of the sports you love on Sports Extra with BT Sport and Premier Sports.
I'm prepared to do anything I can to play for my country again.
Do it then.
What about your start to the game? It wasn't bad, was it?
Why should an honest answer be a mistake?
How can a modern day manager not have a mobile phone?
Why should he?
Welcome everyone, perfect timing. You join us just as we have a goal, an opening goal at Selhurst Park. Crystal Palace hosting Spurs. It has gone the way of Spurs. Harry Kane with the header, started by Son in midfield. Brian Gill, who is starting, played it out wide to Perisic. He curled one to the far post, and Harry Kane was there to nod home. All very routine, all very good. Spurs 1-0 up after 49 minutes. The other games on this evening, Nottingham Forest are 1-0 up away to Southampton, 10 minutes to go in that game. Leeds 1, West Ham 2 is the latest from Ellen Road. That's after 62 minutes. Aston Villa are 1-0 down at home to Wolves. And as mentioned, Spurs 1, Crystal Palace 0. Harry Kane with the goal on 48 minutes. Kenny Cunningham is here in studio still. Good evening once again. We were watching Jamie Redknapp and Graham Souness at half-time there just before the football show got going. They were not impressed with Spurs in that first half whatsoever.
Yeah, I think it was fair, wasn't it? Just in terms of too lethargic, in terms of the position that they're in, playing catch-up now off the back of Conte's comments, looking for a kind of reaction. They didn't see a first half, so I think their comments were fair, but certainly started the second half far better. And yeah, it just shows you at times, just don't overcomplicate the game. Gill, the young boy, done really well, just picked up the ball, central position, just fed it out to Perisic. Perisic, one touch, just deliver, put it into a good area. That's what he did, back post.
It's interesting, they were saying no creativity in the side, and you've got Son there, you've got Kane there.
I don't think they're talking high up the pitch though, Joe. When they're talking about that creative element of Tottenham, you're looking at that central midfield area, and I can understand that. Højbjerg's dependable enough in there. He's a bit of a warrior, isn't he? Puts his foot in, he's competent in possession, I'd say, rather than creative. Bazuma probably the same, more energy levels, obviously a better athlete, but similar type of player. Bentancur's the one for me, gives him a little bit more creativity, scored a couple of goals of late. He's a little bit different, all right. Skip's come in tonight, I'd say very similar to the other two players. So yeah, I think generally speaking, Joe, when you talk about a team, the creativity, you're looking at that, generally that kind of central midfield area. I think they got some good options up front. You've mentioned Kulusevski and Son. Gill's coming out tonight, etc. So
I always accepted that point with Spurs, that they don't have a creative midfielder as such, a Thiago type, for instance, or even someone a bit more creative in their midfield
downrate
too,
him.
of Højbjerg and Skip. But I just thought with Spurs, when have Spurs ever really had that in the last couple of years? And they've been very effective because Kane drops deep and he's a creative force. Son drops deep, he's creative. If Kulusevski was playing, he can drop deep and be creative. You don't always... I think pundits do this. They just look at the game through their own position. And you've got Souness and Redknapp there. And I think they're both just looking at the midfield too. And they're saying, well, there's no one creative there, so they're not a creative team. Spurs have had lots of creativity without having a creative midfield too. Like when you're playing wing-backs, I think it's totally fine if you've Højbjerg and Skip. It doesn't mean that the team can't create. So for me, if I was analysing their punditry, I would have said that doesn't fully explain it to me, because Kane and Son are very creative players. There's something more going on. It's more than Højbjerg, Skip, therefore not creative. That's too simplistic.
I agree with you. And teams have won league titles of late without any creative midfield. Look at the Liverpool team that won the title. Where was their creative, outstanding creative midfielder? You wouldn't bracket Fabinho as that, Henderson or Gini Wijnaldum as that type of midfielder. So you're absolutely right. Think of Leicester when they won the league title, pairing of Kante and Drinkwater. You know, was there a natural quarterback in there getting the ball and dictating the game from central midfield? No. Yeah, so you're absolutely right. It can be overplayed, that one. Yeah. Bit of a lazy one at times.
I thought it was very lazy. And it's not like, again, Harry Kane's not Alan Shearer. Kane can drop back and be a creative force. Son's creative. So it's not like, you know, with certain teams, if you had Shearer up top and you had those midfield too, you'd be saying, geez, yeah, I don't know who's going to create. But that's not Spurs. It's not been Spurs last couple of years.
Yeah, but I would argue that the players that we've mentioned in there, they could do better. 100%. So in terms of like defensive qualities, is Højbjerg the best defensive midfielder? Is the best athlete? Is he the quickest over the ground, dynamic in his movement? No, I don't think he is. Skip, I think he's a decent skin in terms of attitude and whatever. Wear his heart in his sleeve, but in terms of top quality, no. Bazoum's actually surprised me a little bit. I thought he was a really...
Harry Kane scored a second.
Yeah.
They've Højbjerg and Skip can only hold them so much.
Well, you're right. If you're absolutely defensively rock solid, if you play with a 3-5-2, or if you put the 3 in central midfield, if that central midfield there is absolutely watertight, rock solid defensively, even if they just sit behind the ball, I think you're right in that system. You send your wing backs high up the pitch, your front 2, your front 3, wherever it is. It's a front 3 tonight for Spurs. So that midfield 2 just sits there and just protects and just kind of backs up.
Totally.
Yeah, it just stops any kind of counter attack. But
it allows Perisic get forward to put in the cross for Kane.
Yeah,
so
you got your front 3, you got your 2 wing backs. So there's your front 5, and you've got your back 3 and your midfield 2. That's the kind of counterbalance there. And you're even nudging those back 3, those wide defenders, right side and left side. You're even nudging 1 or 2 of them into forward areas of the pitch to kind of back up and supplement the attack as well.
Good, I'm glad we agree on that, because I just thought the halftime analysis was Højbjerg and Skip, therefore Spurs can't create. Not good enough. That didn't add up for me. Kane's second goal is a very good finish, by the way. Right hand side on the angle and drilled it low across the goalkeeper. So that is Spurs 2-0 up suddenly. Kenny, I was thinking of you. So a couple of weeks back you were telling us about the Ozil finish, which I hadn't quite remembered, and it's where Ozil deliberately dinks the ball into the ground and therefore lifts it over the goalkeeper. And you showed it to me in an ad break and my mind was blown. Like, it was just audacious skill on Ozil's part. It's on YouTube. Yeah. So I'm starting to see it everywhere now. It's like a red car syndrome. I just can't go anywhere without seeing it. Most recent example being Dewsbury Hall's finish for Leicester against Liverpool. So I know there's a lot of football on. It's hard to remember everything. This was the goal before the 2 own goals for Leicester, where Andy Robertson gambles and steps up and Dewsbury Hall doesn't play the pass and runs through it on goal. I don't think he plans to do it. We were just chatting during the news. We don't think he planned to do it as such. But when he found the ball a little bit behind him, a little bit under his feet, I absolutely think he went for the deliberate, I'm going to call it the Ozil Kenny, given that you've brought this to my notice. And he absolutely, brilliantly, just behind him, just trunces it into the ground and over it goes goalkeeper. And I was going to text you, but I didn't. But now that you're here, we just had a look at it again during the news. I think that this is becoming a thing. I think there's a degree of footballers copycat each other a little bit. I think
particularly in the modern game. Yeah. So much exposure to goals and lads are on their phones, etc. So I think you're absolutely right. I watched the goal myself, and Yeah, it was just that last touch. No way he kind of planned it, but as soon as that last touch, he doesn't get a good enough touch on the ball, and he kind of leaves it behind him. He's got a decision to make, because if he puts the brakes on and waits for the ball to catch him up, there's the danger the keeper comes out, or a recovering defender makes contact with him. So he has a split decision to make there. And like you say, that's a very difficult shot to get on target, normal circumstances, inside the foot or laces. So yeah, the actual easier skill at that precise moment is to dig it, just to dig it into the ground and get that bounce effect over the goalkeeper. I don't know, you never know looking at it, but I'd be interested if anybody asked him the question after the game. But he's been playing well, confident, so he's a really talented player. That I wouldn't surprise me if at that moment he kept calm and understood, for the reasons that you're saying, because he's seeing this and it's in his head a little bit, and it's almost instinctive. And if he has done it, it's a great finish.
It's a very clever finish. I don't remember it being I wasn't watching football routinely before your era, such as my age. I'm sure someone has done it somewhere in the 100-odd years of football, but I don't remember it being a routine finish in your day.
Oh no, I never, until Ozil, I wasn't aware of it, to be honest. And the first time Ozil did it, I dismissed it. Yeah. In terms of, it was his luck. it was his luck. He's just a little jammer into the ground over the goalkeeper. And then it happened the second time, and I thought, whoa, hold on.
And because it's Ozil. Here. I mean, if Kenny Cunningham had done it twice, I'd still be saying.
I was kicking balls into the ground and digging up turf for a long time before Ozil tried that. But when you think of it logically, you might have spoke about this when Ozil did it, exactly what's kind of happening there. It's fascinating, really, because the keeper's thinking the shot's coming in normal circumstances, so the ball's going to leave his foot at the normal rate and come towards it. So the keepers commit themselves to a dive left, right, or whatever. So, but the fact the ball goes into the ground and bounces up, the ball kind of decelerates. It takes longer for the ball to arrive at the goalkeeper, and at that point he's committed himself. He's on his way. He's actually on his way down. So before he can recover, he understands what's going on. He can recover back up. The ball's kind of bounced over him, and it all looks a bit clunky, doesn't it? Yeah. And a bit messy. But actually, it's a phenomenal technique, and there's real kind of intelligence in terms of what he's doing.
Because I think in that instance, Alisson would be in his rights to. Again, these are all as you would know more so than the rest of us. You guys are all assessing these situations in microseconds. I would think Alisson is within his rights to think, oh, the ball is slightly under his feet here. Near impossible for him to dink this over me. I can go down, and then boom, it's even more of a killer.
Yeah, it is. But it's funny that because in that situation, I think it was thrust upon him the last second, the poor final touch.
Yeah, when he's running through, he didn't think to himself, I'm going to do this.
Ozil used to set it up. The difference with Ozil, he had the confidence to actually set up. I can stroke this with my left foot. I can do anything that I want with it. Yeah. But I'm actually going to do probably which is the hardest technique of all.
To set it up is
offer myself up for ridicule, but I'm going to do it anyway and execute it. That was the difference.
No, Dewsbury Hall reacting to how the situation played out is one thing. To set it up in advance is just a different level.
Did Wout Face set up those two, OJ? Has he been? He didn't.
They were shocking.
Shouldn't be laughing.
They were shocking OGs.
Shouldn't be laughing. Yeah.
The first one in particular was a disgrace.
The first one I saw, if I hadn't seen the goal and somebody rolled in the replay, said, "Have a look at this. What's going to happen next?" As it's coming towards his foot, at no point am I thinking, "Oh, gee."
No.
Even before it's hit his foot, I'm thinking at least he's going to get a solid enough contact to put it behind for a corner, back to where it's come from. It was never. I've had it as a defender. You're going back towards your own goal. You stick your leg out. I'm struggling. You know it's going to come off your studs. You can't take your foot away. You don't know what's behind you, so you're in kind of, you're in hell really. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't know what to do. But it looked as if, all intents and purposes, he was going to get a good contact on that, and then just kind of got it all wrong at the last minute. And then obviously. Yeah,
second one was off the post. Second one was a bit harder.
Yeah, a bit of sympathy for him, like a split second. But it's like the Dewsbury Hall one. It's instinctive. Something happens, he's got to react quickly. And from a defensive point of view, was similar with Face. He just had to get that up in the air. I think the first instinct for me would be in a central out in front of your goal. It's very difficult to go to the side of the just up.
Sure.
Just get it up. Anything, just buy time. If you put it like 40 yards directly up and it comes back in your 6-yard box, could be time for Alisson to recover or other defenders to recover. I know that's a lot of thought time. That's happening very quickly. I understand, but
I'd be suspect of his feet,
haircut,
and the sharpness for a considerable period of time now until I see more of them. I just thought they were not good. On Liverpool. So that was against Leicester. That felt like Liverpool lost that game in some respects, but they won given the own goals. But the way Dewsbury Hall danced through their defence was ominous, and they were so open across that game. I watched it in full, sort of with the sound down. You know how Christmas is like?
Yeah.
Every time I looked up, Leicester seemed to be just gliding through the midfield. The midfield that night was Thiago, Elliott, Henderson. And then obviously the Brentford game has happened, and that was Thiago, Elliott and Fabinho against Brentford. And it's the same old story at this stage. And for much of the season, co-commentators during games, I distinctly remember Gary Neville with the Arsenal game. But it's been numerous games where the point has been made mid-game. Liverpool would prefer if this game slowed down. They don't want the intensity of this game to come up because they're so short physically in midfield. So the problem has been there really in effect from the start of the season, and it's been magnified again over these past couple of weeks. Let's assume for a second they're not going to buy 2 to 3 world-class midfielders in the next couple of days, which is unlikely. Let's assume Klopp has what he has. Is there anything he can do tactically to just say, on an interim basis, until I get to the summer, this is the way we're going to shape the team to try and somehow put something together between here and May, be it Champions League, or do what they have to do to try and get fourth spot even in the league, just as a sticking plaster, and then he can go back to his preferred methods in the summer. Does he have anything there he can do to just try and sort this out?
Yeah, well, this is really interesting. This is why I'm fascinated. I look at Klopp, and he got a huge amount of plaudits, and rightly so. Fantastic in terms of the team that he's put together, the success that they had, playing the way that they have. And I've loved watching Liverpool play. Probably the team I've most enjoyed watching over the last 3 to 4 years, and even putting Manchester City into the equation there. So he's in a conundrum now at the moment because of the drop off, and we all know the reasons for that. It started with Gini Wijnaldum leaving the football club, and it's been heightened now in terms of like Jordan Henderson's drop off, in terms of, you know, in terms of his kind of athleticism and his ability to operate at the level that he was, the intensity that he was previously. He can't do it. So there's a ripple effect to that. Fabinho getting more exposed now in central midfield, and we're seeing his deficiencies in terms of, you know, his ability to cover the ground, you know, at quick speed. He finds that difficult. So all of those things, that's the kind of ripple effect of it. There's other things going on there as well. There's the ripple effect of that in terms of the defensive structure, the back four getting more exposed now, that high defensive line, whereas teams before opposition midfielders couldn't even get their head up to see a pass, Joe, before the pressure came from Henderson, Wijnaldum, or whoever it was, the front three. Yeah. It was a hoof clearance towards the Liverpool back four, and they usually gobbled it up, balls in behind Alisson's starting position. So we're now teams got a little bit more time, an extra second or two in midfield, heads are up. Now they're playing better passes, timing the runs are better in behind. Liverpool are holding that defensive line stubbornly and getting exposed. I'd even argue a little bit of lack of confidence now seeping into the back four. Trent, as we know, just imploded. He was never the best defender, we know that, but the last 6 months, year for me, all-time low level in terms of the quality of his defending. Almost to the point now where I look at Trent, I don't want to make this a Trent thing, I've said enough about him, where you'd have to argue now in terms of his defensive deficiencies, whether they're actually outweighed in terms of what he's offering the team as an attacking threat. Because he's making so many individual, those games that you mentioned the Brentford game, the Weiss ahead of the back post, again an area of the pitch where he should be defending, should be narrowing up to his centre half, winning the header, or at least stopping and getting free header. The Ollie Watkins, very same goal against Aston Villa, ball to the back post over Matip. You can argue a little bit to a certain extent to two Liverpool centre halves. Could Van Dijk have shifted over a little bit? Likewise Matip, another yard or two. Maybe Matip then could have been competing for the header, but they don't do it. And as a fullback, you have to react to the situation, and he didn't. When Ollie Watkins heads that ball into the net, he's actually taking a step away from him. Doesn't want to get hurt by a flailing arm. This is far too many mistakes. I've never seen a fullback operate at that level, make so many mistakes defensively as Trent Alexander-Arnold has done. Now, if you ask me what's the solution to that, is there going to be a massive spike in terms of Trent Alexander's defensive play in the short term going forward? No. So how do you rectify it? This is what I'm interested in looking at Klopp. Not much is changing. So for me, straight away, I'm looking at Trent and I'm thinking back three, get him in a right wing back position, send him up the pitch as much as you can, which is where you want him. Yeah. But at least you've got an extra defender in behind. You've got a back three spread in behind that. Can I say Van Dijk, I know, is out at the moment, but regardless of that, but at least you allow him to get forward, and you're not going to get as exposed because of that extra central defender across the defensive line. Now that helps you there. Now in terms of the central midfield, that's another issue. There isn't a problem there. There isn't a solution. And the solution isn't inside the football club in terms of such and such getting themselves back fit. The solution isn't there. It has to come from the outside recruitment, and that's probably not going to happen till next summer. So in the meantime, what do? You go to a back five. For me, you pick your best two in central midfield, and you go with a front three, and you take your pick.
I was sure you were going to say 3-2.
Yeah, but potentially to go to 3-2. But you're putting two forwards on the pitch, and Liverpool have a glut. Liverpool's strength at the moment probably still is in forward areas of the pitch.
Yeah.
Diaz comes back, Jota, Firmino, Salah, Núñez. I know he's searching a little bit, but you got to stick with him. Gapco's come in, so you don't be sitting forward of them on the bench. You only find a position. That's what I'm talking about, a front three. But for me, I don't think that's going to change. I think he's wedded to the back four, always has been, and I understand that. So as a given, if we're talking Liverpool now at the end of the season, it's going to be a back four. That's our starting point. What do you see ahead of that? For me, because of those forward players coming back, and the deficiencies in central midfield, for me it's still pick your best pair in midfield, probably almost your best defensive pair in midfield, and it's a front four. It's a front three and it's a number 10. It's four forwards that you put on the pitch. So it's a funny one, because in one respect I'm saying, well, defensively they're struggling in midfield, but then I'm saying, well, hold on, I'm only going to play with a two and play with an extra forward. But I think that's almost the way you have to see it. And in those wide areas, to supplement that midfield to whoever it is, whether it's Henderson and Fabinho as a two, whether it's Henderson, some Liverpool players might put Thiago in there. I wouldn't put Thiago into any formation in midfield. Some Liverpool supporters might. So say it's him, say it's Thiago and Henderson in central midfield. For me, in those wide areas, those wingers, whoever it is, you pick your two best defensive wingers who out of possession are going to get back quickly in contact with those two central midfield players and just supplement them.
Then you allow Robertson and Trent to go a bit deeper then? Everyone comes back a touch.
Oh yeah, everybody comes back a touch, but you come back into two blocks of four.
But I wasn't sure. Sometimes there could be an emphasis on almost a 3-4-3.
Yeah, no. For me, the general principles apply, but for me, you can carry if you've got like a weakness in central midfield from a defensive point of view, and we can see that where it's Fabinho and their lack of Thiago. You've got to. Where's the help gonna come from?
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
It comes from the sides, and that allows me. You get an extra 10 in there, so I can see a Liverpool, say for example, front four. People get themselves back fit. Diaz off the left. I see Salah and Núñez down the middle, and I see Jota off the right, because I think Diaz and Jota off the sides can drop back in there.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you. Irishmen can't stop scoring. We will talk about Evan Ferguson. Sorry, we've gone off on a bit of a tangent here. Matt Doherty has scored a third for Spurs. It's Son who's up there causing trouble, and he tries to play a ball across to Harry Kane, takes a deflection back to Doherty, and he finishes very calmly into the far corner. So again, this midfield two of Spurs who are sitting back, keeping things nice and tidy and letting the other forwards go and express themselves. Maybe they're not to blame. No, I'm looking forward to the full-time analysis now, Kenny.
No, I agree, particularly if you have wing backs. Now, that wouldn't have happened if Emerson Royale was in the team, let me tell you that. This is why I was screaming for Matt's inclusion, because this is the quality that he has. He had an opportunity in a similar position, 5-10 minutes ago?
Yeah.
And he actually could have taken it on inside and his left side. He took his shot with his right, blazed it over the bar, and I was thinking, surprised he didn't drag it back in his left side there, Matt, because he's kind of good enough. That's exactly what he did there, and you're right. Particularly if you have wing backs with a real attacking threat, can be really productive, good in 1v1 situations. Perisic is that, because he's a natural left winger anyway, and Matt's one of the few full backs for me. Matt's not a natural winger, but he's very good in the last third, even in 1v1 situations, tight areas. He's as good as there was. At Wolves he was. That's where he kind of forged his reputation. True. Haven't seen enough of it there, but I wouldn't be overly critical of Matt, because at times I don't think he's had the opportunity. He's been backed enough as he should have been, and hopefully he's getting a run of games now. We'll see his quality, because I think I'm a big fan of him. And you're right, Joe, when you have that, when you have those defence-minded players in midfield in this system that Tottenham are playing, you need to get that attacking threat, not only from your front three, but it's got to come from those wing-back positions. That's why he was so successful at Milan, Conte, and even at Chelsea, I'd argue before that with this system, those wing-backs was Hakimi and Perisic into Milan. Hakimi was absolutely phenomenal in terms of final product in the last third.
Clock is coming against us. Put a bow on your Liverpool point then. I can see the logic. Is your sense, here's Doherty again. Ball played into him. In fairness, Palace defender did well, got across quickly. So I totally understand everything you've said there, the logic of that system. Just one last point, because I heard the point made, again, so many games on of late. I'm not sure which pundit said it about which game, but the point was raised, well, if they don't change formation, but if they just play a deeper back four and try to become more of a low block type side, maybe that's a solution as well. Either way, Klopp's going to have to find something, be it something like what you've described, or that high line can't be as militant maybe at the moment.
Well, they seem pretty rigid on that. That never changed. Remember when they lost Van Dijk and Gomez that season, the kind of it all, and they ended up with the kids at centre half. Fabinho was in there, no pace whatsoever. If ever there was a time a manager was going to say, lads, take 15 yards back towards your penalty box, that was it. I mean, he was just patching the back forward together. They were lacking pace, kind of athletics, and he never did it then. He still insisted that high defensive line, you know, compact, high press, everybody follows up the pitch. This is how we play, this is us, this is our identity. So yeah, I don't think that's going to change. That's why I favour formation, slightly different approach, in terms of the extra forward play to your strengths, almost what you have. And for me, the strengths are still in forward areas of the pitch. Get your best front four on the pitch and get your wingers, whoever your two best defensive wingers in the team as well, who'll drop in and supplement those small deficiencies that you have now in kind of central midfield. That's the best. For me, that's good enough. That can be good enough to get him a top four. They're still in the running, no doubt about it.
Okay, very interesting. We'll take a short break. Football show coverage is brought to you by Sky. All the football you love in one place across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports. Back in 1 sec.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky, proud partner and supporter of the Republic of Ireland women's national football team.
This is News Talk.
100 Days of Walking helps people and inspires people and motivates people.
The new year is upon us, and that can only mean one thing. 100 Days of Walking is back.
Get out, clear my head, especially at the end of a long day at work.
This year is going to be bigger and better than ever, and we want you to join in our amazing community of walkers. All you have to do is get your shoes on, get out there and walk.
This year here is my golden opportunity to do something for myself.
Tune in to News Talk Breakfast every day from 7 a.m. for updates, and follow online by using the hashtag 100 Days of Walking.
The Harvey Norman Big Sale is now on, with deals across our massive range of home appliances, like the Candy 9kg washing machine with rapid cycles, perfect for busy families, now $299. Banish bacteria with the steam function on the Samsung 8kg washing machine, now $469. Or get the large capacity LG 10.5kg washing machine, now $579. At Harvey Norman, get our best prices guaranteed, in-store and online, so why shop anywhere else? The Harvey Norman Big Sale is now on. Don't miss out.
Go! Your dad says, you better get health insurance before you're 35. And you say, why is that? And he says, well, you know yourself. And you say, right, just did a quick search. The HIA website says the longer you leave it, the more expensive it gets. And he says, sure, isn't that what I just said? There's only one authority on health insurance, and it's us, the Health Insurance Authority. Visit hia.ie for free, impartial information on all things health cover.
First Fortnight, Ireland's mental health, art and cultural festival opens from January 6th. Join us and our artistic contributors, including Erica Cody, Electronic Sheep, Robert Grace, Timmy Creed, Julie J and Steo Wall, as they help us highlight the need to end the stigma attached to mental ill health. Come to sing, dance, speak, listen and watch with First Fortnight, a cultural oasis in the month of January. Book now at firstfortnight.ie.
I've been trying to get back into reading, so my girlfriend suggested I search for Book Talk on TikTok. First I got into sci-fi, then I moved on to romance novels. Now I'm knee-deep in fantasies. In fact, the Waterstones TikTok profile just recommended The Upper World by Femi Faduba. Search for Book Talk on TikTok, and like me, you might finally find your love of reading at age 36. For great book recommendations, do it with TikTok.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky. Watch every single live Premier League game this season on Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.
This is News Talk.
Interesting evening in the Premier League, by the way. So, as mentioned, Spurs now 4-0 up away to Crystal Palace. It is with 3 minutes to go at Ellen Road. Leeds United 2, West Ham 2. We have Wolves 1-0 up away to Aston Villa. That would be a huge 3 points for Wolves. 75 minutes on the clock there. And a full time between Southampton and Nottingham Forest. Another 3 points for Forest. Southampton are starting to look a touch doomed. Although, it must be said, this Premier League table is beyond congested. From Leicester City in 13th to West Ham in the relegation zone, there is a grand total of 2 points as the gap. So it could not be more condensed. But your bottom three as things stand: Southampton on 12 points. Everton, second from bottom on 15. West Ham, third from bottom on 15. And then it's Bournemouth. Wolves up to 16th. Nottingham Forest up to 15th suddenly. And Leeds 14th and Leicester 13th. So, again, all very, very condensed. I think it's going to be an interesting finale to the season. We should mention Mr. Evan Ferguson. I know we touched on him in the news round, but people coming to us just on the football show, I'm sure, curious for your thoughts. 18 years of age. He's now scored in back-to-back Premier League games. Federico Macheda from Manchester United, the last player that young to score in 2 consecutive games. So also a cautionary tale. And Ferguson hit the post in the first half. It was a really good left-footed effort. Then on 52 minutes he scored his goal. Lots of composure, and then he was involved in the third goal. He gets an assist, although it was routine enough, admittedly, but he gets an assist nonetheless. This guy's been coming for quite some time. Debut for Bows at 14. We were wondering in the news round, Kenny, about his journey over to England. Dan McDonnell was in touch. He was very much on top of these things. Yeah. So the interesting thing with Evan Ferguson is the rule very much for Ferguson's generation as opposed to previous generations is you do not go to England until you're 18. The reason he was able to go at 16 is that his mother is English. So his father, Barry, professional footballer, met the mother in Coventry.
That's right, yeah.
And therefore he was able to go over at 16 as opposed to suddenly maybe going over now.
Yeah.
So maybe a blessing in disguise there. That was the loophole. Otherwise he would have been very much on Irish soil until he was 18. So that's been his trajectory. I mean, you can't think it hurt, akin to Haaland at a slightly lesser level. It can't hurt to have a father who's been around the block and has a sense of the game. And this is incredibly exciting. I know I'm asking you to repeat yourself, but you've watched Ferguson play numerous games for Ireland. You've seen him come through. There is a huge amount to like about this kid, even at 18, without heaping more pressure on his shoulders.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying I've watched every minute of every game that he played at international level. Certainly the last 21 campaign, I had a look at him. Yeah, you can't help but be impressed with him. You know, you don't have to be a student of the game to look at that kid and say, well, some talent there. You know, ticks all the boxes. That kind of physical maturity, which is obviously the standout thing straight away, is why he's obviously made the impact as quickly as he has. Like he's got a man's frame. Physically, can look after himself. Technically, yeah, good. You know, someone that kind of size, not always a given.
Yeah.
In terms of that short kind of force touch, how you kind of travel with the ball, carry the ball, that type of thing. But yeah, no problem. Yeah, no problems there whatsoever. I suppose the biggest challenge which you can see looking at a football pitch, as I said, he ticks a lot of boxes.
Yeah.
Just in terms of what's going on between his ears. But even then, you look at the quality of runs that he's making, his kind of movement. I'd probably, as a comparison, look at him and maybe Aaron Connolly at a younger age. Aaron kind of exploded onto the scene. But I looked at Aaron at a young age and always felt he needs to learn the game in terms of his movement. Where he runs, timing of his runs, kind of game understanding. Even when kind of Aaron broke into the kind of Brighton team and even with the Ireland team, I felt he's still got a bit of a way to go here. Whereas Evan's a little bit different. You know, I just feel as if just sees things a bit early, makes the right decisions in terms of when to drop to receive, kind of when to spin, kind of space around him. So that's all good, Joe. You know what I mean? It really is. Right. And now at the moment, just in terms of now confidence off the back, I know it's been only 2 games, but you come in at that level and you score 2 goals, as he has done, and all of a sudden, whoosh. So I suppose the challenge from now, and we talk about his dad, Barry, I'm sure he's been huge in terms of development up until now, but for me it's just as important now. He's made the breakthrough, he's getting the attention, it's all coming his way, and say, oh, this lad, he's going to this and that, quality, me, you, everybody else showering him with kind of confidence. So it's just important now for his dad and that circle of people around him, just to keep him a little bit kind of grounded and keep him heading in the right direction, and just keep things clear in his head in terms of why he's got this far in his development, what he needs to do to keep progressing and moving forward. But he's very exciting player to watch. It's great, isn't it? It's great news.
Yeah, no, it was great. It is worth mentioning that Evan Ferguson's Brighton did beat Everton 4-1. Booze at half time, booze at full time.
Sack the board.
Booze for all the goals.
That's the only consolation for Frank.
I mean,
sack the board, not Frank.
There are certainly guns being aimed at Mashiri, Kenwright as well today over the last 24 hours. Paul Robinson, for instance, I saw on 5 Live, because we didn't see the game in full, but he said Everton embarrassing, one of their worst performances. He said they haven't a clear structure or plan, defensively easy to break down, the poorest I've seen Everton this season. And I don't know if you saw the opening goal, but genuinely, the defending of Patterson and Cody for what was just a simple ball out to the left-hand side, both of them coming across, and Mitoma, I think it was, just cuts inside both. Not even at a high speed. It was actually an odd goal to see at this level. The weird thing is that Everton against City went to 5 at the back, and certainly on Match of the Day, Danny Murphy, amongst others, was making the point that it allowed them to have split strikers, 2 strikers up front, Calvert-Lewin back. They were very solid, didn't give up many chances to City. This is something to build on. And then whoosh, 4-1 at Goodison. So I don't know where this leaves Lampard. They've got Manchester United in the Cup at the weekend, and looking.
I don't think you can shove them under a bus, because, like you say, if you look at the performance against Manchester City, and that was a different challenge, and tactically it was a different setup, and it really worked for him. I had a look at the team, was working on the game against Manchester City. I liked the setup from the very start, that back three, Godfrey coming in, and if you look at the 2 centre halves, Cody, I mentioned there already, and Tarkowski, decent players, good box defenders, I'd call them, in terms of defending around their box, going to read the game well, and defend crosses quite well, etc., etc. And that's suited against Manchester City. That kind of deep defensive block. The midfield three were fantastic. Onana was missing. I think he was a big miss the other night. His kind of physicality and the kind of dynamism he brings in centre midfield. Him, Gay and Iwobi were outstanding. They could they got around the made tackles, they covered the ground, and they had the pace to break out from that deep defensive block. Oh, well and good saying, retreat to the edge of your 18-yard box and let's hit teams on the counter-attack, but you need to have pace in the team, people who can take the ball individually up the pitch or travel quickly over distance, like 20-30 yards, and they had that to a certain extent with Calvert-Lewin, although he's very ring rusty. Demarai Gray can do it in possession of the ball, and Iwobi's phenomenal. That midfield three, just continually like a running machine. So it was perfect against Manchester City. Just feel as if there's limitations in terms of when they've got to step out that deep defensive block and take the games to the opposition and come up the pitch. Then I think you see maybe small deficiencies in that defensive line. Cody in particular, not the quickest over the ground. Tarkowski's not a sprinter either. Patterson, you're right, still young, developing. I think he's a very good player, but you're right, made a couple of individual errors the other night. So it's not perfect, but I like what he did in the summer in terms of his recruitment. Onana, Gay for me straight away. I like that because they were soft, had a soft centre in centre midfield previous to that. Dwight McNeil came in, I thought, a bit of a creative edge there. I understand that. Let's not forget Anthony Gordon's not fit at the moment. I think Cody and Tarkowski has helped them in that central defensive areas because they were porous there with Keane and Mina last year. So I actually think I'd give him a bit of credit. He's looked at the team, because
it's very fashionable to bash Lampard. He's seen as silver spoon kid, and he's been given chances that others in the game haven't been given. But you rate what he's done as a manager, okay?
Yeah, I had a bit of sympathy for him at Chelsea when he went in there. People say he didn't earn it, whatever. Anyway, he got the opportunity. It was a massive club, lack of experience. Went in there at a difficult time. The transfer from Berger, wasn't it? So he's bringing a couple of the younger
Tammy
players.
Abraham and these came
through.
I thought Mason Mount he brought through.
Yeah, Mason Mount, of course. Yeah, so you could argue in terms of they pulled the trigger. Could have been a bit more patient with him, possibly. So it didn't happen. So and he's got his opportunity at Everton. I always felt Lampard was very bright for me. Even when he finished, you could see it when he played, Joe, on the pitch. Very bright operator because of his limitations himself as a player. The type of player that he became was phenomenal, and he understood his strengths, his weaknesses. You could see how he moved on the pitch. Very smart operator, even in terms of his punditry when he finished football. Really enjoyed listening to him speak in terms of his eye for the game. So that's all. That encourages it, gives you a bit of optimism, and if you're looking to maybe put this man in position as a manager at a football club. So and even at Everton, I feel as if the players who have come in, I think he understands the way Everton have to play. Some people a little bit of criticism out there. Well, you can't play, possession based at Everton. It's got to be high energy front foot stuff. That's what they demand. You're a fool if you think he can placate them any other way. But I think he realises that, and that's why he got the likes of Gay, Onana and Iwobi into central midfield, like tenacious, aggressive, high energy players, like back to front. These aren't players who are like at their best and retaining possession of the football and just holding possession for long periods.
What's the biggest reason then for you that after 18 games they're in the relegation
zone?
I
think a big reason for me, centre forward Calvert-Lewin. He must be absolutely tearing his head out. They carried Calvert-Lewin for the whole time he was on the pitch against Manchester City. Carried their centre forward for the whole of the game and still came out of that game with a draw. So for me, started towards the end of last season, the impact that he made. Now you could say, well, that's his responsibility. Where's the cover? He spent money on Mopay, but he's a totally different player. He's more of a squad player. So that's the killer for me. I think he maybe took a calculated risk in getting Calvert-Lewin onto the pitch this season and keeping it fit, and it hasn't happened. So that's a problem for them. Is it perfect the other end in terms of the central defensive partnership? No, I don't think it's perfect. Could they do it better individually centre-halves? Yeah, but that costs a lot of money. I'm not sure they have it. So I can see what he's putting together. It makes sense to me in terms of the team that he's putting together. Now, that hurt the other night, don't get me wrong. But I'd be reasonably encouraged generally what I've said. I think he gets it, Lampard. I think he gets it in terms of what he needs to put out on the pitch there and what the Everton fans demand. And I see that coming together slowly. Ultimately, whether he gets the investment, if he gets like 50 million to spend, he might have to make it a big decision at the end of the year, get Calvert-Lewin out. Maybe in reflection, they should have sold him a year and a half ago. Yeah. Spurs have been 40, 50 million and got a top class striker who they could keep fit week in, week out. But that's by and by, that's gone now. So I think he's got a couple of he's in an awkward position, but he may not get the time. I think you're right, that result hurt, but I just think there was a bit of money in the bank. If I was the owners looking at that Manchester City game, I would have been thought, oh yeah, I like what I'm seeing here.
Man City are always interesting. They play Chelsea tomorrow night. So they drew with Everton, as discussed, and they beat Leeds post World Cup resumption. I mean, weirdly against Everton, Aki and Rico Lewis were the full-backs, Walker and Cancelo on the bench. Presumably there are issues there with injury management and minutes, but it seemed odd. The other maybe more questionable decision, or the decision to get your thoughts on, Phil Foden has played 37 minutes in their last 3 games, 1 start in their last 6, so this predates the World Cup as well. It's been Grealish and Mahrez of late on the wings. So what Guardiola said of Grealish over Foden just of late is, I see something on the pitch in the training sessions. I use my intuition to use Jack in these games because he gives us extra passes. And then, not talking specifically about Foden, but I mean, you wonder who else he's talking about. He was talking about body language. Says, I'm looking at body language. The older I get in management, body language in training sessions, in matches, everything. You can't play well when body language isn't correct. That's one of the main factors I go with when it comes to selection, because everybody's skills are so good. People again are looking at Foden not being in the team and saying, well, maybe this is directed at Foden. I have to say, I've never once looked at Phil Foden's body language and thought he was anything but committed. The man has never not sprinted to press a ball out of possession in his life.
But this is the modern game, Joe. You hear a lot of this in terms of, how players train during the week. It just wasn't prevalent in my day when I played. You could literally, maybe I was a little bit guilty of it at myself at times towards the latter stages of my career, in terms of thinking, oh, physically don't feel great. This is like I'm under early in the week and just training at 60%, like, you know.
You didn't like Saturdays either, from my memory.
That's a fair point.
I don't know.
That's a very fair point.
There's something more. This doesn't make sense. Foden not on the team.
No. So for me, the argument isn't Grealish or Foden. You know how I feel about Foden. For me, they both play. And I don't know what it's going to have to take for Manchester City or England to, in terms of the qualities that Phil Foden has, for the penny to drop and say, this is one of the outstanding players of his generation. Tell you what, here's an idea. Let's play him in his best position. What about if we play him in his best position and see how good he can be? Because for me, his best position, from what I've been told and what I see myself, how he's been developed in Manchester City. In the Manchester City system, they play it all through the youth team and all the way down. He's a left-sided 8. City play with a midfield 3, a holding 6 and 2 8s, a left-sided 8 and a right-sided 8 behind that front 3. Foden, for me, is a left-sided 8. That's when he's at his best.
So you're saying Rodri, De Bruyne, Foden?
Absolutely. And then you get Grealish in the team, left side of a 3, Mahrez, Haaland, you could argue Alvarez, Cole Palmer into the equation, whatever. So for me, that's the way forward. That's the way forward for England. That's how England missed a beat in the summer against France. In that second half, England took control of that game for 25 minutes in the second half, took the ball off the French, but couldn't fashion enough clear-cut opportunities, because for me, they hadn't got enough attacking threat on the pitch in that period. They needed to get Foden on the pitch with Bellingham in those number 8 positions with Declan Rice in behind, and get Grealish and Rashford off the left-hand side for that period of the game. We'll never know. Easy for me to say talk is cheap, but I think there was a better chance with those players on the pitch and those areas of the pitch for England to go and take that game away from France in that part of the game. So for me, well, look at City. So for me, that's the solution. The argument is that Grealish or Foden doesn't stand up for me, because Foden, Joe, when he comes deep into central areas, receives the ball and starts travelling with the ball, defenders take a step back, because they know this lad travels with speed at the ball, slaloms, tackles, he frightens people to death. I don't see it. I don't see another English player like him. I said it before, I haven't seen another English player since Wilshere, who's got that ability, dribbling ability, close ball control, and has got that turn of pace over 10 yards. Just see it.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to do that when you're playing left of a 3 up front, because you're higher up the pitch, you're coming back towards the ball, Joe. You're playing on the half turn, you're coming into areas of the pitch, tight little pockets. And that's why when he talks about Grealish making more passes, I can understand that. Because say Everton, for example, that deep defensive block, players behind the ball, nice compact shape, how are you going to break that down? Well, it's clever little combinations, little 1-2 touch passes, little reverse passes, up in the tempo, slowing it. And Grealish for me is probably better than that. Foden better in 1v1 situations, more dynamic, will score you more goals. But for me, you get them both on the pitch.
Yeah.
And we haven't seen it for Manchester City yet, and we haven't seen it for England.
Yeah, it's very strange.
It is very strange.
And again, the body language point, it may have nothing to do with Foden. He could be talking about somebody else. I've never seen Foden with bad body language on a pitch. Now, maybe on a Monday or Tuesday post-World Cup, he's messing around a little bit.
Yeah, but this is what but this seems to be the consensus. Managers won't accept that during the week. A drop-off in performance during the week, that's not acceptable. That seems to be, you hear a lot of that mantra, don't you, in terms of, train as you play, attitude and train and drop. Well, that's unacceptable, almost as if, have to come down with the hammer. You've got to be made an example of.
I also don't see it.
It's interesting, because like I said, it was totally different. You probably experienced it. I think we've all done, you know what I mean, in terms of the old attitude of he turns up, I'll suffer anything Monday to Friday, but I know on a Saturday he'll turn up and give me the performance. I trust him. I trust him so he can manage himself through the week. Now, this is different, maybe a 23-year-old to a 33-year-old, don't get me wrong, but generally speaking, he turns up on a Saturday, I'll pretty forgive him anything. But I think you're right. I can't see Phil Foden's walking around giving it Larry Large on the training pitch, Jordan.
He loves football too much. He loves football too much to do that, I think. It's like us with you, 2 to 7 we put up with anything, but then we get the magic 7 to 10. We're pretty much out of time. Just give us a quick word on Manchester United, because you saw them last night.
I can't do it. Forget it. I'll speak to you next month. I can't give you a quick word.
3-0. It looked like they cruised. You were saying they were still a touch open, so it wasn't like a total possession.
You watched Ten Hag after the game. There's a couple of shots of him on the pitch after the game, and he's got his arm. David De Gea, I wouldn't say he's shouting at him, but he's not happy because he knows this can't happen again. That second half performance, how open that they were, how easily Bournemouth got at them and got through them down the sides and crosses and created chances. He knows he has to rectify that. But probably similar to Liverpool, actually, in that respect. I'm not too sure he has the solution necessarily in those central midfield areas.
Is Casemiro not Mr. Shut everything down?
Not by himself.
Who was
part
with
of the solution?
Who was with him? Ericsson.
Ericsson was playing there, and Fernandes is a 10 who just didn't turn up for the first Fernandes played off the right, played right for 3.
Against the bigger teams, can they get away with Casemiro and Ericsson as the 2?
I don't think so. And certainly not with Fernandes in front. For me, you take your pick at the moment. Probably Liverpool, similar to Liverpool's sticky plaster, what you do at the moment is probably a midfield 2 of Casemiro and maybe McTominay. Or you could argue Casemiro, McTominay and Fred in midfield 3, and you sacrifice the 10, but then you sacrifice Bruno and Ericsson. If you're talking about getting one of them into the team, for me, Ericsson plays as a 10 at the moment ahead of Bruno.
Right.
And you take your pick, or Fred or McTominay alongside Casemiro in a 2. As good as he is, Casemiro needs a little bit of help. He's not the quickest over the ground, we know. Not the greatest athlete.
Still reading it well, but just that physicality.
Fantastic intercept, and he's a distributor. And a finisher.
He's a really good player.
And a finisher as well. This is what I'm talking about. So people, you're right. So I've always thought Casemiro, whenever he gets in the opposition half of the pitch, he makes things happen. He produces. He's productive. So this kind of tag of as a holding midfield player does actually quite stand up, because I don't think he's got all the attributes to play in holding midfield. Yes, reads it well, interceptions, great, but very similar to Fabinho in terms of how he moves over the ground. Very clunky. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when he gets into the last third, for me, I'll be encouraging him a bit higher up the pitch.
Yeah.
I'll be getting more of an orthodox holding midfield to play alongside him and actually encourage him up the pitch a little bit, because we've seen how productive he can be.
Interesting.
3 seconds, what did you say?
That was pretty good going. No, we'll take that. So Aston Villa have equalised against Wolves. 1-1 is where we are in 95 minutes. Full times in the other games. Spurs 4-0 winners against Palace. Leeds and West Ham 2-2. And Nottingham Forest 1-0 winners against Southampton. Just gone full time at Villa Park. So 1-1 draw there.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky, proud partner and supporter of the Republic of Ireland women's national football team.
This is News Talk.
The furniture sale is now on at Flanagan Kerrans. There's discount on all stock. Yes, all stock, including beds, mattresses, sofas, tables, chairs, pianos, beanbags, rugs, half-price mirrors, pictures and lamps, gifts and even special orders. You also get free assembly and free recycling of your replaced bed or mattress.